we'll be making today, some infused oils and tinctures. And then after the presentation, I'll demonstrate how to make those. And then wrap up for questions. So what I share today won't capture the full complexity and the depth of traditional indigenous medicine systems. And I do emphasize the word systems, since oftentimes Western medicine likes to portray non-Western medicine as simple folk beliefs, but they are actually complex knowledge systems, and there's a lot of theory and indigenous science behind these. So the purpose of this workshop is to encourage you to learn more from your community elders, your medicine people, and cultural practitioners. The purpose of this workshop isn't to give medical advice, and it's also not to teach you how to harvest wild plants. If you do want to learn how to harvest wild medicinal plants, it's best to learn in person with a cultural practitioner who is experienced, so you know that you're properly identifying the plants. Some lookalikes could be toxic, and also so that they are showing you how to harvest in a safe, respectful, and sustainable way. To my knowledge, none of the plants we're covering today are threatened by overharvesting, specifically by non-native individuals and companies, but it's always good to check with your community plant expert. So the first plant we're meeting today is shigoi, Latin name Laria tridentata, also commonly known as creosote, chaparral, greasewood, gobernadora, and it is native to the Sonoran, Mojave, and Chihuahuan deserts. It's the source of the desert rain smell we all know. And this is just a photo of a shigoi at the Desert Botanical Garden. They do have it labeled there, so if you want to go and make sure you know which one it is, that's a good place to go. And some interesting facts: shigoi is extremely drought tolerant. Some plants can be thousands of years old. There is actually a shigoi ring in the Mojave Desert that's over 11,000 years old. And they only breathe in the morning. So plants have stomata, kind of like our lungs, which breathe in carbon dioxide, and then the plant uses that during photosynthesis. But the stomata close when it gets too hot so that the plant avoids losing too much water through the pores. So for water conservation, they only breathe and photosynthesize in the morning. And to maximize energy production, the photosynthesis, shigoi always face southeast to get as much morning light as possible. So you can see in this photo, it's facing, I guess the bottom right would be southeast. In Autumn origin story, shigoi was the first plant made by Itoi, Big Brother, and it's a very important plant in Autumn traditional medicine and traditional medicine systems of other Southwest tribes. It's also an important plant medicine in indigenous Mesoamerican traditional medicine or traditional Mexican medicine. And shigoi has antiviral, anti-cancer, antifungal, anti-inflammatory properties, a lot of great healing properties. Here's a close-up of the leaves. Usually it's the leaf part that we are using. So traditionally, shigoi is used internally, so taken orally, consumed as a tea for colds. It's chewed for toothaches. It's brewed into a tea for stomach aches, and then externally, it's used, so on the skin, it would be soaked in a cloth and steamed to help with bruises. It can be used to help with sores, cuts, dandruff, as a deodorant, or to help with muscle pain and arthritis, rheumatism, so that's inflammation, and then also menstrual cramps. So here's the plant. This is after it has flowered and it's going to seed. Contemporary use is it's known to help with fungal infections like athlete's foot, ringworm, or candida. And here's some information from the Salt River Cultural Resources Department. It's best not to pick it when it's seeding or flowering like this. And then some people have also said that if you consume too much of it, it can cause liver injury. So if you do have a history of kidney or liver disease, best not to take it orally. Also, if you're pregnant, it's good to check first with a healthcare practitioner before consuming it. So in general, if you're just learning how to use different medicinal plants, it's best to start out using them externally on the skin only first, just to be safe. And unless you have a specific direction from an expert. And it's always good to use less starting out rather than more, and increase your concentration as you learn. So our next plant is Echinacea, Latin name Echinacea angustifolia. It's commonly known in English as purple coneflower or black Samson. And I have the Plains Apache names here for it. It's more of a traditional medicine for Plains tribes, so or east of us. And Echinacea has anti-inflammatory and immune system boosting properties. Traditionally, it's used internally for numbing or relieving pain for toothache. So analgesic just means pain, like pain relieving. And then it's also used traditionally for sore throats. And then some traditional external uses include helping with body aches and pains. That's the anti-inflammatory property. Helping with cuts and sores, burns, snake bites, and headaches. And then some contemporary uses include supporting the immune system. So you'll see a lot of herbal products that for colds and flu that will have echinacea in it. And then some other great uses, it helps lower blood sugar. It's also, if used externally, it can help with acne and eczema, and also muscle pain and arthritis. So I have this book, Plains Apache Ethnobotany, and then the elders in this book have said that dried roots are more potent than fresh, and then the whole plant is used. So roots, flowers, and then stems and leaves too. Or juniper. So there are a few different species of juniper. The one we see most commonly on Navajo Nation and in the Southwest is Juniperus osteosperma, or in English, Utah juniper. And both the needles and berries are used medicinally. And of course, lots of other uses, including juniper ash, which I'm sure you all know, but we're just gonna go over some of the healing properties. So juniper is antibacterial, antifungal, anti-diabetic. It is an analgesic. It relieves pain. It is traditionally used internally and externally. Some examples include helping with headaches, stomach aches, nausea, acne, spider bites. So both the Plains Apache Ethnobotany book and the Navajo Herbal book, they both mentioned that it was used, or it is used for helping with postpartum pain and hemorrhaging, so after childbirth. And it also it can be helpful with dandruff. So some contemporary uses. So when I say contemporary, it means, so Western medicine is just catching up with indigenous knowledge of what these amazing potent plants can be used for. And these are, so when I say contemporary uses, it's what Western medicine is adding to say, oh, okay, we can use it for this too. So for juniper, it can help with skin infections, like bacterial or fungal infections, help with acne, eczema, muscle pain, and arthritis. can help with digestion and also stress relief. So you can see the needles and the berries here. Okay. So the first 4 plants that I shared just now, Shigoi, Echinacea, Juniper, and Yarrow, those will be included in the kits that we have for the first 20 who registered. If you are one of the first 20, you should have received an email already. Apologies that we couldn't get it to you before this workshop. We had one item that was hadn't arrived yet. So we'll send out the dates and times for pickup very soon. Thanks for your patience and apologies again. So yarrow, Achillea millefolium, it's technically not indigenous. It was introduced to this continent, but it has become a very important traditional plant medicine. It, the healing properties include anti-inflammation and speeding up healing of the skin. And some traditional Navajo uses include using it for fever, for headaches, and skin sores. So again, in this book, some of the medicines that they talk about for healing skin injuries or skin infections, also mention using it for skin infections or sores or cuts on animals too, like horses. So that's I thought that was very interesting. Then that it can be used for people and other animals. Some contemporary uses include using it for cuts, scrapes, and burns, for stress relief, also for oily skin and hair, again, muscle pain and arthritis. Okay, so we have one more plant to share.
Lillian, before you go, can you tell us the name of the book again?
Oh yes, so yeah, so the first book that I mentioned was Plains Apache Ethnobotany by Julia A. Jordan. I can type that in the chat. Plains Apache Ethnobotany. By Jordan. And then the second book I mentioned was, probably pronouncing it wrong, a Navajo herbal, 100 plants on the Navajo Reservation by Vernon O. Mays. Oops, Mays. Okay, so those are the 2 books I mentioned. I see another question. How do we process these plants to use them? So I will briefly mention about drying, but again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the workshop, I won't be covering how to harvest, and then I won't be covering in depth how to process, because it's best to learn in person from a cultural practitioner who is very experienced, so you make sure so you know that you're doing it safely and sustainably. Thank you for the questions. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Okay. So our last plant that we're meeting today is prickly pear, which we see everywhere, Latin name Opuntia. So there are a few different species of prickly pear that are used. So I just included the Opuntia, the broader genus. A quick lesson on Latin names. So if you see, usually you see the 2 words, like this one, Achillea millefolium. So the first one is the genus, and then this second word, part of the name, is the species. and plants in the same species will cross. Okay, so that's just a quick thing about Latin names. Okay, so, oh yes, and nopal in Spanish. So you can also buy these at different Mexican groceries like El Super, and I think it's also at Food City. So traditionally, prickly pear is used to help heal cuts, sores, burns, and wounds. So you would burn the thorns off or remove the thorns by rubbing the pad in sand, and then split the pad and bind it over a cut to stop bleeding. And then in the Plains Apache Ethnobotany book, they talk about using yucca leaves to bind the prickly pear pads. So you can see the pad and the fruit here. And of course, in the Indigenous Wellness Program, we are all about food as medicine. So prickly pear fruits and pads are edible, and they are known to lower blood sugar and LDL cholesterol levels, making it a great food for diabetes prevention and management. And they are also great for promoting liver health and healthy skin and hair. Okay. Any questions before I move on to what we're making today? Okay. If there are no questions, I'll get started with what we're making. So I'll talk about right now what infused oils are and what tinctures are, and then I'll do the demo. Okay, so we're going to be making infused oils and tinctures. Both involve steeping herbs or plant medicines in a liquid to extract the medicine part into the liquid, and then you can use the infused liquid for different health benefits. So for infused oil, the herbs or plant medicines are steeped in oil, and you want to steep them for a minimum of 4 weeks, and 6 weeks is ideal. And this next part is very important. The herbs you use need to be bone dry because any moisture at all in the plants will cause mold. And if you are, because someone mentioned about preparing herbs earlier, if you are picking the herbs yourself, you want to dry them for 4 to 6 weeks before infusing. Make sure they are bone dry, no moisture at all. And here is a picture of an infused oil that I made. This is at the beginning of the process, right when I put the plants in. This one had calendula, chamomile, mint, and Navajo tea in it. And I used olive oil. And then this is what it looks like after, or what it looks like after 6 weeks. So the benefits of an infused oil depends on the plants that you use. And once the infused oil is done, it can be used by itself. Some people, it is oily because it's an oil. So some people like to turn it into a salve because they don't like the oily feeling. And a salve is just, you just combine the oil with beeswax or plant wax to make it thicker. And it becomes more creamy. And if you do use a culinary herb, you can use the infused oil in cooking too. So if it's not a culinary herb, then the infused oil would just be for external use on the skin only. And then for a tincture, the herbs or plant medicines are steeped in alcohol. A cool thing is if it's steeped in oil, it's an infused oil. If it's steeped in alcohol, it's a tincture. And if it's steeped in water, it's a tea. So I thought that was cool. And you can, for tinctures, you can use fresh or dried herbs. So that's one difference between infused oils and tinctures. For oils, it's dry only. And for a tincture, you want to steep your herbs for 6 weeks or longer. So this is a photo of a tincture at the beginning. My family had gotten the plant medicines from a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. And This one I've had steeping for over 2 years already. I think it's closer to 2.5. And we would use this kind of tincture growing up all the time, use it for bruises or muscle strains. So I don't know if you can see my video right now, but here it is. Here's the tincture, the same one. You can see it's much darker now. And then for tincture, you want to make sure that the base you use is at least 40% alcohol by volume. If it's any less, there's more chance of it spoiling because the alcohol, it is what it dissolves into, but it also preserves the tincture. Okay, so for this workshop, we're going to be using rubbing alcohol, and it will be for external use only. Excuse me.
I do have a question in the chat, Lillian.
Oh,
Are
okay.
there any other oils that can be used?
Oh, perfect question. Yes, I meant to go for that. So yes, you absolutely can use other oils. Some examples of other oils include almond oil, argan oil, coconut oil, grapeseed, jojoba. That's another plant that's native to the Southwest. And also sunflower, another native plant. So lots of different options. I just use olive oil because it's easiest to get and the cheapest. So, but yes, great question. And then for, where was I at? Okay, so again, like the infused oil, the benefits of your tincture depends on the herbs or plant medicines that you use. And oh, here's, yeah, that's the photo of the same tincture that I just showed you. You can see because it started out clear, and all the good medicines have dissolved into the alcohol bit, and you can see the spent herbs there. Okay.
We do have another question.
Oh,
Will
okay.
you comment on potency, like how much herb per fluid?
Yes, that is a great question. That's what I'm going over next. Thank you for that question. Okay, so let me pull this up. Okay, so for, I'm gonna go over the ratios right now. So for both, you will need a clean jar with an airtight lid, and you wanna make sure it's airtight because you'll be shaking it every so often to make sure it's infusing evenly. And for an infused oil, 1 cup of oil. For this demo, I'm going to be using olive oil. And for tincture, 1 cup of rubbing alcohol, like I mentioned earlier. And then a 1/4 cup for both of them, we need a 1/4 cup of dried herbs or plant medicines of your choice. And so the ratio is 1 part dried herbs to 1 part dried herbs to 4 parts liquid. And for fresh, if you're using fresh herbs for a tincture, it's more, you would do 1 to 1. Does it answer your question? Okay, I'll just go on.
Yes,
Oh,
they said yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so next page. So if you're using dried herbs, I recommend using whole leaves and flowers instead of powders. You can grind it up a little more to have more surface area to infuse, but like the powdered herbs at the store, it's so fine that when you go to strain it later on, a lot of it just falls through your cloth. So that's why I recommend using whole leaves and flowers. And you can also use a blend of herbs or just one kind. Both are great. The examples that I showed were all blends, and folks who are getting the kits will have a pre-mixed blend for you. So two different baggies of pre-mixed blends. And then here are some examples on the right side of some non-traditional herbs that you can use, non-traditional for indigenous for this continent. So I know it's more difficult here in the city sometimes to get traditional plants and foods. So that's why I included this list. And these are actually all edible, like plants that we often use in cooking or for tea. So you would be able to use an infused oil that you make using these plants for cooking also. And then infused oils and tinctures are used in many different traditional medicine systems all over the world. And it's definitely doable with traditional indigenous herbs and plant medicines. And again, please consult with a medicine person first before using traditional plant medicines. Okay, so for the next 2 slides, I'll be sharing different health benefits and which herbs you can use for that purpose. So for dry skin, eczema, rashes, minor cuts, scrapes, burns, and acne, calendula is great. That's what is in this photo here. Chamomile, echinacea, juniper, lavender, shigoi, and yarrow. For muscle pain and arthritis, clove, echinacea, lavender, juniper, peppermint, rosemary, sage, shigoi, and yarrow. And then for stress relief and headaches, echinacea, juniper, lavender, peppermint is really great for headaches, sage, and yarrow. For infections, bacterial infections or fungal infections like athlete's foot, ringworm, Candida, juniper, oregano, shigoi, and thyme. So these are pretty potent. And then for oily skin and hair, rosemary and yarrow. For dandruff and itchy skin, peppermint, sage, and shigoi. Okay, so this is very important. Sometimes you might have a sensitivity or allergy to a certain herb or plant medicine. So before using your infused oil or tincture for the first time, it's important to test it on a small patch of your skin first, like the back of your hand or your wrist, just to make sure you don't have any reactions. And some examples of reactions, if you do have a reaction, your skin might turn red, it might get itchy or feel a little bit like a slight burning or tingling, or it might turn puffy. And if you do have a reaction, please don't use it. Maybe you can gift it to someone, but we don't want you to irritate your skin. Okay, so ready for the demo now? Let me, before I demo, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna switch my camera now. I'm gonna stop sharing. What do we do?
And I am going to spotlight you, Lillian, just so you know.
Okay, I'm trying to switch my camera. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna switch it to, I plugged in this other camera. I'm going to switch the view. Video. Okay. All right. Yay, it worked. Oh, I just saw a question. Any good books on East Coast plants and herbs? I don't know off the top of my head, but I can do some research and find out. Thank you for the question. I did want to share an interesting resource. It's not a book, it's a database actually of native plants. It's called the Native American Ethnobotany database. Where's the chat? It's interesting, and it covers all of like the whole continent. Yes, I just shared the link in the chat. Okay, so we have all our materials here. So, and folks who are getting the kits, you will be getting everything you need in the kits. So I have 2 jars, one for the infuse oil, one for the tincture, and these are half pint or 8 ounce jars. And it's better to use a jar that's about the size or the amount that you're going to be making. So you don't want to get like a huge jar if you're only going to be making 1 cup. And that's just because if there's a lot of air, there's more chance of it reacting and spoiling. So smaller jar, or a jar that just fits what you are making. So in the kits, you'll be getting 2 jars. And then I have herbs here. So I have oregano, chamomile, thyme, and juniper. These will be in one of the blends that you'll be getting, or the folks who are getting the kits. Also have my rubbing alcohol. This one's 70%, again, 40% or higher. And then I have my olive oil here. This wasn't in the list, but it's always good to have paper towels. It gets a little bit messy when you're pouring. If you have a funnel, that's great too. Okay, so I forgot my cup, my measuring cup. Be right back.
And then I just wanted to say, Carrie, she did type the database in the chat. I hope you saw that.
Okay. So we'll open one up. And it's usually easier to put your dry in first and then your liquid, just because if you've already put the liquid in and you're pouring the dry in, it's harder to get it all mixed in without spilling. So I'm going to open these up. These are new, it's a new batch. I got these in bulk at Natural Grocers. I'll be sharing a list of where you can get bulk herbs in a second after the demo. So I have my cup here, and I'm just going to do, I'm going to do majority chamomile. And in the kits, it'll already be measured out, so you won't have to do any measuring. A little more. Smells really good. Kind of sweet smell. Okay, and then oregano and thyme are more potent, so I'm only going to be doing a little, like a pinch of these. I'm already making a mess. Thyme. And I have juniper berries here. So I told this story to the last group. Every time my partner, he's from Chile Mesa, Chile Many Farms area. And every time he sees these, he goes, you know what we used to do with those? We would throw them at each other. So he's a real funny guy. So I have this here. You don't have to do this. It's just nice because you can use it to crush up the juniper berries so that the the inside can be exposed and it'll be stronger that way. Kind of break open the berries here. Okay, it's okay if you don't have this, it's just a fun tool. Okay, so that looks good. I'm gonna add these in. Oh, this smells good too. Okay. So here's my 1/4 cup of dried herbs and I'm gonna add that into the jar. Okay. I'm going to do the tincture first. So here is the rubbing alcohol. And this, since this is a 8-ounce or 1/2 pint jar, I know already that if I fill it up to here, it will be 1 cup or 8 ounces. So I can, if you don't have exactly the right size jar, you can just measure it. But I'm just going to pour it since I know this is a 8-ounce jar. Just pour it to the line. Oh, folks in the kits who are getting the kits, your liquids will already be in the jars. Sorry about that, just so we can get it to you. So you'll have to manage with putting the dry into the wet. So you seal it tight. Again, make sure it's an airtight jar because you want to shake it afterwards to make sure it's all evenly distributed. And you can store this in a cool, dry place out of the sun. And every once in a while, whenever you pass it, you can pick it up and shake it to make sure it is distributing its or infusing evenly. And then you can let this one sit for 6 weeks at least. Okay, so I have this one done. I'll do the overflow next. So again, the juniper berries are going everywhere. Have the chamomile here. Have my thyme, just a pinch of that. Oregano. And if we wanted to do an edible tincture, will we just use an ingestible alcohol? Yes, people do make tinctures that you can take orally using an edible alcohol. Again, because you are consuming it and because I feel that tinctures tend to be more potent, it's best to start out doing external tinctures first because you don't know your concentrations of the tincture that you're producing. But yes, people do make tinctures that you can take orally. Everclear is good one for edible tinctures. Thank you, Nadia, for sharing about Everclear. I'll have to look that one up. I do also know of an individual who does make tinctures, which you can buy online. And I think a portion of their profits they donate to indigenous organizations. And they have all their information. They're very transparent about how they make it. And how to use it and the concentrations and whatnot. So I can share that too. I have the juniper here, juniper berries. Breaking it open to so that the insides can be exposed and release all that good stuff. Into the jar. And then my oil. Again, the ratio is 1 part dry herbs to 4 parts liquid. Seal it tight. And then give it a good shake. Close this. So here we have our finished tincture and infused oil. Same thing, this one, store it in a cool, dry place for this one, at least 4 weeks, 6 weeks is better. And every once in a while, when you pass it, give it a good shake to make sure it's evenly infusing. And here I have these ones that have been sitting for, this is a tincture that has been sitting for 4 weeks already. You can see, it's hard to see when it's tilted. It's a lot darker. It started out clear. Well, can't really see this one when I tilt it, but the liquid is a lot darker. The medicine has seeped into it. So here's the tincture, and then this is the infused oil. This one's double. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, you can scale the ratios. As long as it's the right ratio, you can scale to make more at once. So this one's double this ratio. Give it a shake while I have it. Okay. I can share this one again too. I don't know if people saw. So this is the Chinese medicine tincture, the yaojiu, that I made from the herbs from the traditional Chinese medicine. Okay, so that should be everything for the demo. Easy peasy, pretty simple. And then I have a list of where you can get bulk herbs. So let me pull that up. Any questions while I'm pulling up that list? I'm gonna switch my video again. Okay. Any questions? So for oily hair, we would use a tincture. I think an oil actually would be fine too. Alcohols do dissolve oils and strip the oils away, but I've heard that if you strip the oil away, it actually makes your hair will react, or your scalp will react by producing even more oil. So I actually would recommend using the infused oil, but doesn't hurt to try both. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let me find my presentation to share. Too many screens here. Okay, here it is. Oh yes, I see Catalina's comment. Don't forget to label. Very great comment. Yes, good to label. Please label your what herbs are in there and what ingredients. It's always good to know. Sometimes I end up forgetting. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, everyone can see that one. Oops. Okay, so these are some places you can get bulk herbs. They're not endorsements. So I find a lot of good selection. I find a lot of good herbs I find a good selection of herbs at natural grocers, and they do have a lot of, not a lot, but they do have some traditional indigenous plants there. Like I saw passion flower the other day, and I find their pricing to be better than Sprouts. If anybody else has favorite places to get bulk herbs, feel free to share too. You can also go to Sprouts or just any spice section at your grocery store, any grocery store. Oftentimes they will have something in bulk. And if you're ordering online, Mountain Rose Herbs is said to be an ethical, sustainable source. They are said to be more careful about where they're getting their herbs from. And they do have a decently broad selection of traditional indigenous plants, along with non-traditional plants too. So those are some places. I see Kara says Nature's Health Shop in Chandler has some dry herbs. And Melissa says Desert Sage in Chandler. And Krista says Pacific Botanicals. Thank you so much for those suggestions. I'll have to make note of those. And great suggestions. Okay, so again, we always encourage folks to get fresh fruits and veggies. Here are some sources where you can get free and low-cost produce in the Valley. Farm Express is great. They're a mobile produce market, so it's pretty cool. They have old school buses that they converted into these really fun, bright green mobile markets, and I've been to them, and they travel to different places in Phoenix and Tempe, and their prices are pretty decent. And another great source is Produce on Wheels Without Waste. So you can get 70 pounds of fresh produce for $15, and it's a lot. So usually it's better to team up with another family or two to divvy up your haul. So, and they have, they set up at a lot of different locations throughout the Valley, I think including East Valley, I think North Phoenix too. And then a lot of farmers markets and grocery stores will accept double up food bucks. So if you spend $1 on fresh produce with your SNAP card, you get $1 extra to spend. And then of course, Native Health's Food Pantry and Food Programs offers free food and produce. We have family, senior, and youth programs, food programs. And then Native Health Traditional Garden, which I take care of. Any produce that is harvested during a traditional garden event is shared with folks who join in, and sometimes we even have pick your own events. So this photo on the top right, top left, is some tomatoes and green beans from Tanatam pink bean plants. This was from last week. And then here's just a screenshot from our tomato and sunflower rows. And before you go, I'm gonna put this link in the chat. Please share your feedback so we can improve for future workshops. It's a quick survey and it also really helps us with our grants. So we would really appreciate if you shared your feedback. So I will, oops.